Good morning, everyone. Hope you've all been awesome. Just chilling on my bus in front of my fire. Thought I'd make a quick video before I head to work. Sorry it took so long to make the second video. I'll be completely honest with you. I wasn't thinking I was going to make a second one. My first video didn't really take off the way I was hoping it would. So I wasn't really thinking I was going to make a second one, but there were a few people out there that were really interested in what I was doing, and they wanted me to keep going. And so I appreciate your guys' support. I appreciate you guys being interested in what I'm doing. And it's just because of that I'm going to keep going. And so, but anyways, this is part number 2 onto how to install house windows on a bus conversion. As you can see, I already got some windows set. I'm going to do an outside walk around to show you guys the outside, how they look and everything. You're going to be able to see that I obviously didn't get all the prep work done on the bus. I was left with 2 options: make my bus look pretty or freeze to death. So I took the lesser of the 2 evils and chose not to freeze to death. I went ahead and just set them in. I didn't caulk them or anything. I have to correct myself on the first video. You hear me say silicone. I'm not meaning silicone. I have a friend that actually corrected me. I was meaning caulk, but I was just using the wrong word. And so I want to make sure I correct myself, let you guys know so I'm not misleading anyone. I'm not the most articulate person out there, so I try to explain things, but sometimes I'm not the best at explaining things. But anyways, I'm going to show you guys the inside, give you some tips and tricks, things that I did. Hopefully it will help you out in setting your windows and getting them in. Like I said, I haven't caulked these yet, and I haven't had any leaks. It's pretty much fall time, so you know how crazy the weather gets. We've had some crazy rainstorms, and surprisingly enough, these things have not leaked at all. The only leaks I've had have been around the emergency top hatches. The original screws, those are leaking. That's why I would recommend just replacing anything original on the bus with, you know, modified stuff, or, you know, pulling it up, resealing it because it's old, and, you know, they didn't do it cheap, but it's cheaper. So, but anyways, I'll do a walk around with you guys, show you the inside. Like I said, give you some tips and tricks. I did get this aluminum wrapped. I'll do another video on that, show you guys that. That's one stage 1 for my insulation, and it's actually been doing awesome so far. I haven't really gotten this insulated yet, and I am not. It's been getting cold, and I haven't had any issues. And so, but anyways, through these videos, if you guys have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, and I'll make other videos, you know, explaining the things that I missed, maybe that you guys have questions about. But let's go ahead and I'll walk around and show you the inside and explain everything. Alright, so I'll show you the inside. As you can see, it looks a lot different than the first video. Actually presentable this time. But, look at those beauties. They turned out awesome. And you can see the aluminum wrap I'm using for the insulation. Another video, but look at that. Open smooth, no binding, no issues. And then that. Oh, that screen, worth its weight in gold. Especially during the fall season, all the bugs are trying to get in here. But I'll go over a few things. So when they pulled this window seal out of the factory mold, there were some edges right here. It wasn't flush all the way across, so I had to actually take a utility knife and just kind of whittle them down, shave them down, so that way it went flush all the way across. These guys were hitting in the corners and wasn't allowing it to slide in, so I had to do that on all 4 corners. And as you can see right here, this is a full-on cook stove height. It's apartment size, so it's only 20 inches wide. But even with this actually isn't sitting down where it should be at. It's on top. There's still space underneath this window. So not only will this stove sit under the window, but I'll actually be able to do some finishing trim behind it, so it'll look awesome once it's all done. All right, let's see. This part over here I'll show you. So you'll see on the outside that there's screws holding these windows in, and the way that I got my perfect pilot holes, I basically made these wood slots right here on each of the window sills that slide in, or they just kind of pop in. Like I said, every bus is different, but I set my window in and then took a drill from this side, and you can see the holes, and actually drilled from the inside out. So that way I got my perfect pilot holes, didn't have to try to guess or ruin anything. Once I did that, then I set this back in and then drilled pilot holes and then set my window in and then screwed it in. And this window's a little different. I'm gonna have to show you from the outside. Same with the driver's side. I'm gonna have to do something a little bit different on these ones, just because of the way that windows are gonna set and bump into things, and you'd have to cut and modify, and windows are expensive, so I don't want to cut and modify. So I'm gonna modify other things so that way I don't have to do that. Haven't gotten these ones ordered yet. I need to get these ordered. I'm going to recruit a friend to film me set these in, because like I said, there's some tricks to it, and hopefully he'll be available to help me out with that and get this recorded for you guys. So All right. Oh yeah, one more thing. Sorry, I almost forgot. But I'll explain more on the outside, how I set these in with the screws on the outside. When I talked to the window guy, he didn't recommend that because of aesthetics. He didn't think it would look good. I actually think it looks good. And you can even paint the heads of the screws if you need to. So that way they're more basically hidden. But he suggested actually doing security screws. And that's basically putting a screw right here in the middle, screw right here in the middle on each side, and then some on the top. And the reason I didn't do that, there's a few different reasons. Well, I'm going to actually put security screws in here, but one of the reasons I can't do that yet is I need to put my skeletal structuring boards in first, because if I were to drill and pull a screw out, the way these windows, they actually sit past everything, the screw would pop out right here in the middle. And so it wouldn't grab onto anything, it wouldn't do its job. So I need to actually do the skeletal structuring, and then I can do that. But along with the security screws and then the screws on the outside, I won't have to worry about anything rattling out over time, windows falling out surprisingly or anything like that. And so that's why I'm kind of, I'm more of an overachiever. If you're going to do something, you might as well go full out. So, but that's the inside. I'll do a walk around on the outside. You'll see my awful looking prep job that's not done. But anyways, we will continue on. Alright, so here's what my windows look like from the outside. I'll do a kind of a walk around while I go ahead and explain everything to you. Try to keep it short. Try not to be a chatty Cathy and make this video short and educational for you. But basically I went with a flush fin window, black on the outside, white on the inside. Went with a flush fin because a normal house window will actually stick out farther than what this does. I mean, the window actually sits down past the fin. And so I was worried about it catching, you know, breaking. I wanted to try to protect my windows. It was kind of a costly investment, so I want to make sure that they are not going to break, you know, with any silly catches or anything. One thing I wanted to show you, there's a gap right here, and that's what I need to seal with caulk. But when I got these windows, the window guy talked to me. He was basically worried about the aesthetics. I mean, you can do this other route that he was suggesting. But there's a couple different reasons I did the route I did. I basically put screws through the outside fin into the bus. He didn't recommend that because he didn't think it would look good. The reasons I actually did that is basically because I want to do wood trim eventually down the road. Wood cedar trim, I want to notch that out, have it sit down in there nice, around my windows, stain it. But the only way I could have done that is if I had screws or actual wood to nail it into, which I don't. So I don't really know of any other way I could have done that. Maybe glue, but I didn't want to go that route and have them just pop off. And so I want to make sure they were going to be secure. So that was one of the reasons I went with it. The other reasons why is because if I would have actually installed these screws and then set these windows, this gap right here would have been way, way, way bigger. And I already don't like the fact that there's a gap. I mean, that's kind of frustrating, but you know, that's why you have caulk to seal it. But an even bigger one would have been even more frustrating, so didn't want to go that route. But with that, I'll go ahead and show you guys some different things and tell you some tips and tricks. So one thing I want to show you, this part of my window, basically I have this rain drainage system right here. And I was first thinking about doing it like these other ones, just, you know, measuring it to right here, having my fin stick over. But doing that, the fin would come up and actually hit this. So I would have to notch out my fin and get it to set back in here. And with that being the drainage system, it could leak back behind there. Like I said, these windows aren't cheap, so mutilating them really I didn't feel like was an option for me. So I'll show you with this other side, but what I'm going to do is actually cut a 2x4 down to fit in here, and this is that notch piece I showed you guys earlier that that you know, kind of sits in there. But basically I'm going to put my cut 2x4 right here, and it's going to go not lengthwise but widthwise, so that way it comes away about 1.5 inches. That's what these fins are, so that way instead of actually sitting on this piece, they'll be sitting on the wood itself I can screw into. The other nice thing is because of this drainage right here, I want to actually just tip it back just a smidge, so that way my fin won't actually get any water back behind it. If you do that, be really careful, because if you do it too much, you can bind your window up, so when you try to open it, it doesn't open smooth, it doesn't open correctly, and it's kind of rough, and you know, could possibly have other issues down the road. And so a couple of real important things I also wanted to mention. Right here's the header that I welded in, but I went with a 2-inch. Unless you're magical or you have some other tricks, you have to use a 2-inch or bigger. And the reason why is because of how close these fins are. They hit against here. And basically when you set a window, you have to set all the corners at the same time. You have to basically set it in squarely. If you don't, it'll bind up. Basically the window frame is super wide. So if you try to set the top in, like here's the fin, if you try to set the top in right here, the actual windowsill will be down at a kind of a weird angle. And so when you try to set the bottom one in, it'll hit and won't actually set in there. If you measure these super tight anyways. That's why if you give yourself some room, you know, you could do some playing with it and get it to work in there. But I measured mine super tight. So what I ended up having to do is I did that. I set it up in here and, you know, but basically instead of keeping it at an angle right there, I brought it back where it hits this fin, and then lifted up the bottom and then kind of worked its way in. Because basically, I also tried setting it from the bottom and then setting it in, and the window fin will actually hit against this fin, and so it doesn't really work like that. But doing it the way I did it, I was able to bring it back, and then while lifting it, it flexed it just enough that I could lift this bottom piece up and kind of work it in. I got most of them in, no problem. There was one that was really tight. I kind of had to, you know, convince it to go in with the bottom of my palm. Anything more than that, I wouldn't recommend, because it might be kind of a, once you get them in there, you can't get them back out, and that's not what the whole purpose. I'm doing this so that way I can actually get them out and replace them if I have to, with it being pretty easy and stuff. And so, but one thing that's pretty nice is I thought there was going to be a huge gap in here. There's not. And then especially when I do that wood trim around here, it's going to, I mean, it's going to look really nice. It's going to seal it up, and I'm not going to hopefully have any issues. And so, all right, I'll go ahead and show you the other side with that wood piece that I was talking about. Hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense. Okay, so this is the other side of the window. Hopefully this will make some more sense with a little bit of a visual aid. So this is that board that I was talking about. It's a 2x4 I cut into the spot to basically, if I were to install the window in here like I did these other ones, these side mirrors, this handle, these bolts, they'd be getting in the way from the fin. So to counteract that, what I did is I cut out this piece and installed this, just going to basically screw it through and actually into the bus. But basically my fin will actually be able to sit on this piece right here instead of the metal piece, and then I can screw into this wood and secure my window. The only other few things I can think of, tips and tricks to tell you guys, I basically used a sealer oil for this wood. All the wood around the windows I did that with. That way if any water leaks through or gets on them, they won't rot away or rot out. And then when I last talked to you guys and talked about the security screws, or basically screwing them on the inside of the window frame, when you do that, make sure you do not do the down part. Don't drill on the bottom, just do the tops and the sides. And the reason why is the window guy explained to me, these windows actually have a drainage system, and this is where the water kind of drains out. You can actually see some draining out right here. But if you screw down through the window sill or the window frame, it'll actually mess this up and it'll cause it to leak and leak into the bus. And so if you secure it using the inside screws, just make sure you do the sides and the tops, don't screw down through the bottom. The only other tip I could give you guys, my windows did have a little bit of play in them. So what I did is I basically set one side window, or actually before I set either of them, I put them in and then basically had someone stand outside and watch, and I raised and lowered each one until they were even across. If I just would have you know, done them while they were in, this one could have been down, this one could have been up, and you would have seen that. It wouldn't have been even or flush across. And so make sure you watch that too. You could easily have one window up higher than the other one, and then you'll be able to notice that, and it won't look good. And so those are really the only tips and tricks I can think of. Like I said, if you can think of anything else, if I missed something, please comment below. I'll answer your comment. If I can't really answer it, I'll make another little video, especially for the question, just to try to explain things and kind of answer them to help you guys out. So after this part, there's pretty much going to be pictures. The pictures aren't all window pictures. They're just pretty much what I've done since last time I made a video on my bus. And so I just kind of turned it into a little collage with some music behind it. But hope this helped you guys out and will help you figure things out and along the way. So. Con los terroristas. The Harlem Shake.
the Harlem Shake.